the Oxford Human Rights Hub has been important as a focal point for connecting a lot of the really interesting human rights work that happens at the university in Oxford, but often in places that aren't so well connected to each other. So it's been important internally to have a focal point for where people can come in and share their research and collaborate on human rights legal issues. It's also been an important focal point, I think, for Oxford and for the Oxford academics to be able to reach outside, beyond the dreaming spires, and connect with practitioners and policymakers and advocates and activists who are also working in the human rights space, so that academia can inform practice, can inform academia, and we can have these mutually beneficial conversations, both within the university but also reaching out of the university.
Blog is a really great way to keep involved in the hub, writing very short reports on things that are happening in Oxford, sometimes a report about seminars that have happened, as well as important cases that have recently been handed down in courts, particularly in South Africa, which is where I'm from.
But I think that the blog provides this great interface between practitioners, academics and students from all across the world, and it covers a really broad range of human rights issues from a huge number of jurisdictions. So I find it really exciting to be part of this community where that sort of dialogue is encouraged and embraced.
In between the craziness of the PCL, I have been trying to read it quite frequently. There was a specific post that I found useful on a case before the CEDAW committee, and that is just the impressive thing about the Oxford Human Rights Hub, the coverage that it gives to particular, I think, tribunals or committees that are undercovered in quite a lot of human rights law platforms, I think.
And it's great to, having read the blog and enjoyed what the Human Rights Hub has to offer in seminars and other things, to be able to encourage people to write and work on the posts and keep up to date with a lot of the cases that are coming out across the world.
The Hub has really been a wonderful resource for me doing research in Oxford, especially on issues to do with equality and non-discrimination. And some of the problems that I've been having in my research were answered through blogs from various people, and that was very exciting.
I think it's important because it brings together different perspectives on human rights. I like the fact that it tries to include people from Center for Criminology and Socio-Legal Studies as well, so as to bring more critical outlooks on human rights and the connections between rights, law and reality.
I think it's a mine of very useful information, and then what I most appreciated about it was the fact that it had comparative information from different jurisdictions, and so it's a very refreshing site. It gives you serious information, but it's informal and formal at the same time, so it's a very useful resource, and I went there a lot throughout my year here in Oxford, and I'd really recommend it to anyone else.
I've attended many Human Rights Hub events. As always, there's a huge number of guests that come globally, really fantastic speakers, and it's a fantastic way to learn more about your field and be more engaged in what's happening in practice around the world. My favourite speaker has undoubtedly been Kato Regan, who was a former Justice of the Constitutional Court in South Africa, and she spoke about policing in Khayelitsha, which is a township just outside Cape Town.
Well, my favourite event, actually, I must say, has been the podcast series, and it's been my absolute privilege and pleasure to be working with two fabulous co-producers, Max Harris and Kira Allmann, on this project. And we've had the opportunity to talk to some very interesting people working in the field, other academics at other universities, policymakers, on some really engaging topics like revenge pornography, the death penalty, litigating for women's rights in India, and business and human rights.
My favorite thing has been the webinars. They're the one I've been most involved in. They're quite exciting. There's a lot of live energy in the room when we're doing it, and it's quite fun to know that what we're saying in a tiny room in Oxford is being broadcasted all over the internet to a large global audience. So that's quite thrilling.
I was at the webinar for the first time this week, and I was amazed at the technology and how easy it is to do actually. And I think it's really great that we can bring a lot of people. I mean, we can live up to that global kind of idea that we're trying to encourage by setting up these kind of events. And as long as you have an internet connection or can get to somewhere that does, you can tune in. So I think this week actually seeing the webinar in action was neat.
Well, you know, who wouldn't I recommend it to should be the question. So I think like human rights lawyers doing work all around the world, academics, and students in particular keeping up with developments in the law as young human rights lawyers, I think is quite important.
The target audience is everyone, because everyone has a stake in human rights. Human rights are not just for academics or just for lawyers or just for students. Everyone who interacts with each other and with their government has an interest in human rights. The hub is for everyone to think about how can we use human rights properly.
Yeah, I think actually the best part of the hub is that it's a resource. It's got resources that cater to people in all kinds of human rights work. So whether it's practitioners or students or academics or anybody with just a fleeting interest in human rights, I think the hub resources are there to benefit them and to sort of encourage that kind of broader engagement with human rights issues, no matter where people are and what work they're doing.
I think very, very different people. I mean, students and scholars in Oxford certainly, but the great thing about the website is that it's so international, it's promoted so internationally. So I'm sure there are a lot of people, activists, maybe even politicians around the world who read our work. And it's great as a scholar to be able to put out something so quickly that has such a high impact.
Our mantra is connecting academics, practitioners and policymakers on a global basis, and so that's a pretty broad pool of recipients. So one thing that I like about the hub and its resources is that they're free, they're high quality, they're available online, so anybody who has a laptop and some internet connection can access them. So I think that the Oxford Human Rights Hub has something to offer everybody in some senses, and that's part of I think the success of what we've been doing here. If I could describe the Oxford Human Rights Hub in one word, I think the word that I would use would be community.
Legendary.
Groundbreaking.
I think they're just doing like really necessary work, and I think that's it, like, yeah, necessary.
Global.
Exciting.
Awesome.
I think it's forward thinking, both in trying to reach out and look at new topics that perhaps we're not covering or aren't getting sufficient coverage, but also in the techniques we're trying to use, like this, but also the webinars, the podcast series and these other things. So I think it's forward looking in substantively, but also in terms of trying to use technology and other pieces.
I would describe it as life-changing.